Imagine a whole village with only 12 residents. Yes, just 12. Today, we're exploring Germany's loneliest village and what life is really like when almost everyone has left. You won't believe how quiet it is here. Meet the village that time forgot. Ultra-small settlements like these are scattered across rural Germany, especially in regions such as Brandenburg, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, and parts of Bavaria. Many of them have populations of only 10 to 20 residents, most of whom are elderly people who have spent their entire lives there. Over the years, younger generations have moved away in search of work and better opportunities, leaving behind communities that grow smaller and quieter each decade. Homes in these settlements are often spread far apart, sometimes separated by fields or patches of forest, and connected by aging roads that see very little traffic. There is usually no main street, village square, or central meeting point that you would expect in a typical town. Instead, you find isolated farmhouses and a few scattered homes surrounded by farmland, much of which now lies unused as farming declines. Essential services are rarely nearby. The closest town with supermarkets, doctors, schools, or public transport connections may be 15 or even 20 kilometers away, making residents heavily dependent on cars. During winter, heavy snow or icy roads can make travel difficult, increasing the sense of isolation. At night, and often throughout the day, an overwhelming silence settles over these areas, broken only by the wind, birds, or the distant sound of farm machinery. Life moves slowly here, offering peace and quiet, but also a level of isolation that many people today are no longer used to experiencing. Why did everyone leave? After World War II, many rural areas in Germany began losing their young people to the cities, where work and modern life seemed more attractive. This trend sped up dramatically after the reunification of Germany in 1990. Villages in the former East Germany started to empty as people moved westward in search of better jobs and opportunities. The closure of collective farms wiped out many local employment options, and young families left because there were no schools for their children. Shops shut down when customers disappeared, and even doctors stopped making visits. This created a vicious cycle. As more people left, fewer services were available, which pushed even more residents to leave. Those who remained were mostly elderly individuals, either too attached to their homes or too poor to move elsewhere. Some owned houses they couldn't sell because nobody wanted to buy them. Over the course of 30 years, communities that once had hundreds of residents shrank to just a handful. Today, in some villages, abandoned buildings outnumber the homes that are still lived in, leaving a ghostly, empty landscape. What a normal day looks like. Daily life in a village with only a dozen residents is completely different from what most people consider normal living. Simple tasks require careful planning because nothing is close by. A trip to the nearest supermarket usually means driving 30 minutes or more, so residents tend to shop only once a week and stock up on everything they might need. There are no cafes, shops, or public spaces where people casually meet, and social interaction is limited to seeing the same few neighbors day after day. Spontaneous encounters or meeting new people almost never happen. Entertainment options are limited, often revolving around television, reading, gardening, or small household projects. Reliable internet service can be slow or unavailable, making streaming or remote work difficult. Mail is delivered only a few times a week, reinforcing the feeling of being cut off from the outside world. In emergencies, distance becomes a serious concern, as ambulances or emergency services may take up to 45 minutes or more to arrive. Winter months can feel especially isolating, with snow and icy roads sometimes keeping residents indoors for days at a time. During these periods, people might not see anyone outside their own household for long stretches. The silence in such places is constant and noticeable, broken only by wind or distant farm activity. For some, this quiet lifestyle feels peaceful and calming, offering escape from city stress. For others, however, the isolation and lack of activity can feel overwhelming and suffocating over time. The surprising benefits of extreme isolation. Despite challenges, some people choose this lifestyle with good reasons. Cost of living is incredibly low. Housing is often essentially free if you maintain an old property. No rent, parking fees, or city expenses. Nature is everywhere and unspoiled. You can walk for hours without seeing anyone. Air is clean, night sky full of stars. Wildlife roams freely. There's deep peace impossible to find in populated areas. Privacy is absolute. Nobody cares what you do or how you spend time. No noise pollution, no traffic, no crowds. For remote workers or retirees, it can be paradise. Some artists and writers seek these isolated places for creative inspiration. Lack of distraction means deep focus on projects and hobbies. Community bonds, while small, are incredibly strong. With only 11 neighbors, you know them deeply and rely on each other in ways city people never experience. The dark side nobody talks about. Extreme isolation has serious downsides romantics overlook. Mental health can deteriorate without regular social contact. Depression and anxiety are common. Alcoholism is a real problem in many dying villages. Medical emergencies are genuinely dangerous. A heart attack could be fatal because help can't arrive in time. For elderly residents, this is constant fear. Getting basic things done becomes exhausting. Every errand requires planning and travel. Infrastructure crumbles because there's no tax base. Roads develop potholes that never get fixed. Abandoned buildings become dangerous as they decay. There's no police presence. Fire services are far away. If your house catches fire, it might burn down before anyone arrives. The psychological toll of watching your village die around you is heavy. Seeing more houses empty, more neighbors pass away with nobody moving in, creates deep sadness. Who still chooses to stay? The 12 people who remain in these villages fall into distinct categories. First are the elderly lifers, people in their 70s, 80s, or even 90s who were born there and refuse to leave. This is their home, and they'll die there regardless of hardship. Second are people who inherited property and keep it as a weekend retreat, though some eventually move there permanently after retirement. Third are the misfits and dropouts, people who couldn't fit in a mainstream society and found refuge in isolation. Fourth are the idealists, often younger people seeking alternative lifestyles away from capitalism and consumerism. They might be artists, writers, or remote workers who romanticize rural poverty. Fifth are people with nowhere else to go, those too poor to afford city rents but lucky enough to have access to a rural property. Each group has different motivations, different daily realities, and different relationships with their extreme isolation. What they share is a willingness to accept hardship in exchange for something they value more than convenience. The future of these dying villages. What happens next to these nearly empty places? Some will simply cease to exist. The last residents will die or move away, and nature will reclaim the buildings. Already dozens of completely abandoned villages exist across Germany. Others might experience unexpected revival. Remote work trends could bring new residents seeking cheap housing and quiet. Some abandoned villages have been bought by investors or artist collectives who transform them into experimental communities. A few might become tourist attractions, preserved as living museums. The German government faces tough decisions. Should they invest in keeping dying villages alive or let them fade naturally? Some authorities offer incentives to attract new residents, with limited success. Most of these 12-person villages probably won't exist in 20 years. They represent a way of life that's disappearing, a chapter of history closing. Could you actually live there? Could you handle life in a village with only 12 people? Be brutally honest. Can you go weeks without seeing anyone new? Can you handle overwhelming silence? Are you okay with hour-long drives for shopping? Can you fix things yourself because there's no handyman to call? Will you manage without fast internet, food delivery, or entertainment? Most people think they want isolation until they experience real isolation. A quiet weekend in the countryside is completely different from living somewhere this remote permanently. You need extreme self-sufficiency, mental strength, and genuine comfort with your own company. You also need a reliable car and money to handle constant travel. On the other hand, If you truly find cities overwhelming, crave silence and space, don't need constant stimulation or social contact, these places offer something increasingly rare in our crowded world. Just know what you're getting into before you make the leap. Could you handle living somewhere so empty? If this amazed you, hit like and subscribe for more strange and forgotten places. And check out my next video for even more unbelievable villages around the world.